Have you ever chased something so big, so beautiful, that when you finally caught it, you didn't recognize the weight that came with it? Everyone talks about the dream, the passion, the grind, but no one talks about what happens after you get there. After the lights come on, after your name is known, after you've climbed the mountain and realize it's colder at the top than you ever imagined. That's what happened to Jimmy Fallon. He started with nothing but a love for laughter and a spark inside that wouldn't die. From small clubs to the biggest stage in late-night television, he lived what millions only dream about, a job that looked like joy, filled with applause and smiles. Every night millions watched him, cheered for him, laughed with him. It looked like he had it all, but sometimes the world hands you what you've always wanted, just to see what you'll do when it turns against you. Behind the screen, away from the crowd, something else was brewing. Something darker. It didn't show up all at once. It crept in slowly, a comment here, a headline there, whispers that turned into criticism, criticism that twisted into hate, and the worst part, it wasn't from strangers alone. It was from people who once cheered him on, people who once said they believed in him, people who forgot he was human. Nobody tells you that success comes with a price, not just time, not just pressure, but exposure. The more visible you become, the more vulnerable you feel, and Jimmy wasn't ready for that, because how could he be? No one ever is. He wasn't prepared for the labels, the judgment, the attacks on his character, for people picking apart every word, every choice, every second of his life. It didn't matter how many good moments he gave, it only took one mistake, one rumor, one misstep, for the world to turn. Suddenly, the same hands that lifted him pushed him down, and there's something cruel about watching everything you worked for become the very thing people use against you. Fame doesn't protect you from pain. In fact, it often magnifies it. He said he never expected it to be this brutal, and that says everything, because it wasn't the work that broke him. It wasn't the long nights or the pressure of performance. It was the silence after the laughter. The feeling of being seen but not understood, loved, but only when perfect. You see, hate isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet withdrawal of support, the sigh, dies, the conversations behind your back, the headlines that twist your truth into something ugly. And when you face that alone, it can tear you apart. But here's the truth most people miss. What happened to Jimmy isn't just a celebrity story. It's a human story, it's your story, because we've all felt it in some way, the sting of rejection, the shock of betrayal, the confusion when people turn cold without reason. Maybe you've worked hard to become someone better only to be doubted. Maybe you've dared to stand out, only to be ridiculed. Maybe you've given your heart to something, only to be told you're still not enough. And in those moments, it feels like everything is collapsing. Like the world's spotlight is no longer shining, it's burning, but that's not the end. That's not where the story stops, because the ones who rise from that pain, who find their voice through the noise, who refuse to let hate define them, those are the ones who build something stronger than fame. They build character, they build resilience, they build unshakable belief in who they are. And that's why you need to hear this, not just to know what Jimmy went through, but to see your own strength in his struggle, to remember that even when it feels brutal, when it feels unfair, when you're not prepared for the wave that hits, you can still stand, stay with this. Because by the end, you'll understand how the most painful moments often become the most powerful, not just for Jimmy, not just for stars, but for anyone brave enough to keep going, for anyone like you. But standing doesn't mean the pain disappears. It doesn't mean the voices go silent or the pressure lets up. Sometimes, standing just means you refuse to sink. Jimmy kept showing up, smiling, performing, doing what he loved, but behind that smile was a man who was hurting, a man trying to understand why doing what he was born to do could suddenly feel so heavy. That's the part most people never see, the silent battles, the invisible wounds, the way pain hides behind professionalism, behind performance, behind pretending everything's fine. Because what choice do you have when the world expects perfection? You put on the face. You do the job. You push through. But inside, it eats away at you. Doubt becomes a whisper that turns into a roar. And even though the spotlight is on you, you feel completely alone in the dark. He started to question everything. Not just the job, but himself. Was I ever really good enough? Did I let everyone down? Am I becoming the person they say I am? These aren't surface-level questions. These are the ones that go straight to your core. The kind that shake your identity, the kind that make you afraid to trust your own reflection, and that's what hate does. It makes you forget your own truth. It makes you shrink, makes you second. Guess your voice, your decisions, your purpose. Because when enough people throw stones, you stop looking outward and start believing you deserve it. That somehow their anger means your failure. Their opinions become your prison. It doesn't matter how famous you are, how successful, how accomplished. Pain is pain, and nobody is immune. The problem is, society tells us to ignore it, to toughen up, to be strong. But real strength isn't pretending you're not hurting. It's facing the hurt, acknowledging it. Feeling it fully without letting it define you. Jimmy didn't fall apart because he was weak. He cracked because he's human, and that's what people forget. The person behind the name, the heart behind the job. When we dehumanize someone, we give ourselves permission to tear them down. But when we see their humanity, we find our own, and maybe that's what this pain is trying to show you too. Because maybe you've been hiding how much it hurts. Maybe you've been trying to hold everything together while everything inside feels like it's falling apart. Maybe you've been the strong one for too long, and now even your strength feels tired. This is your permission to stop pretending. Not to give up, but to feel, to breathe, to let the weight you've been carrying drop for a moment, because you can't heal what you refuse to face, and healing doesn't mean everything becomes perfect. It just means you stop letting pain control you. You stop giving power to the noise. You stop asking for approval from people who never had the right to define your worth in the first place. Jimmy didn't need to be perfect. He needed to be real, and so do you, because the world doesn't need another flawless version of you. It needs you, the real you, the one who's been through the fire and came out burned, but not broken. The one who kept showing up even when it hurt. The one who still dreams, still fights, still believes, even if only in whispers. You're not here to live a filtered life. You're here to live a full one. With all its mess, all its weight, all its beauty. You don't rise by escaping your pain. You rise by walking through it, by choosing to believe in something deeper than the opinions around you, something unshakable inside you. It's not the crowd that makes you worthy. It's not the applause. It's not the praise. Your value doesn't come from what others give, it comes from what you decide you are. So even if you're hurting, even if you feel lost, even if you're surrounded by doubt, remember this. The fact that you're still here, still listening, still breathing through the pain, that's strength. That's resilience, that's power, real power, and if you hold on to that even when it's faint, even when it flickers, you'll find your way through, just like Jimmy did, not by being invincible, but by being honest. Honest enough to admit the hurt, brave enough to keep moving anyway, because in the end it's not the hate that defines you. It's how you choose to rise above it. Rising above it doesn't mean the world changes. It means you change. It means you stop waiting for the noise to quiet down, and instead you find the stillness inside yourself. That moment when you say, I can't control what they think, but I can control what I believe. That's the turning point. For Jimmy, it wasn't about proving the critics wrong. It wasn't about winning back approval. It was about reconnecting with the reason he started, before the spotlight, before the pressure, before the expectations turned heavy. He went back to that younger version of himself, the one who simply loved to bring joy, no ego, no fame, just passion, just purpose, and that's where everything shifted. Because sometimes to move forward you have to go back. Back to who you were before the world told you who to be, back to the place where your dream was pure, where your voice was free, where your heart wasn't guarded by fear or shaped by comparison. That's where your power is. You don't overcome pain by pretending it never touched you. You overcome it by reclaiming the parts of yourself it tried to destroy. Jimmy didn't need everyone to believe in him again. He needed himself to believe again. And so do you, because nothing changes until you stop outsourcing your worth, until you stop giving people the keys to your peace. They don't get to decide when you matter. They don't get to choose how far you go. That decision is yours, and yes, it takes courage, courage to rebuild, courage to speak without apology, courage to stand when everything inside you wants to disappear. But that courage is already in you. Even if it's quiet, even if it's buried beneath the weight of your doubt, it's there, waiting to be called forward. You've survived too much to be stopped by their opinions. You've come too far to let the noise turn you around. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be real, and real people fall. Real people feel lost. Real people break. But real people also rise. The world needs more of that. more people who show up scarred but still standing. People who stop hiding their struggle and start owning their truth. People who lead not with pride, but with authenticity. That's the kind of strength that outlasts any headline. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade when the applause stops. And maybe that's the deeper reason you've been going through what you're going through, not to break you, but to build you, to teach you that your identity isn't based on what you do, it's based on who you are when everything else is stripped away. You are not just your job, not just your image, not just what others say about you. You are your values, your fight, your decision to keep showing up when you could have stayed down. That's what defines you. And when you find that fire again, the one that started all of this everything begins to change, not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you become stronger, more grounded, more focused, more unshakable. That's when the opinions don't sting the same. That's when the silence doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like space to grow. That's when you stop chasing validation and start chasing growth. That's when you remember no amount of hate can cancel purpose, no amount of noise can drown out a voice that refuses to quit. So if you're in that place now, the quiet, heavy, lonely place where the weight feels too much to carry, remember what Jimmy remembered. Go back to the beginning, to the version of you who didn't need anyone's permission to believe, who didn't wait for the world to agree before taking the next step. That version of you still lives within you, still waiting, still ready, and when you reconnect with that, you stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for your light. You stop begging for support from people who were never meant to understand your vision. You stop doubting the dream just because others don't see it yet. Your breakthrough doesn't come when everyone believes in you. It comes the moment you believe again, fully, fiercely, without apology. So let them talk. Let them doubt, let them misunderstand, because none of that can stop what's inside of you unless you let it. This is where it changes, not when the world says you're enough, but when you say you are. Not when the pain ends, but when you rise with it. Not when they stop hating, but when you stop needing their love to feel whole. The fire is still in you, and you're not finished yet. When you finally stop chasing acceptance and start honoring your truth, everything changes. The fear that once held you back begins to lose its grip. The noise that once controlled your choices starts to fade, because now you're not walking for them, you're walking for you, and that shift, that's where real freedom begins. You weren't put here to be perfect. You weren't born to fit inside anyone else's idea of who you should be. You are here to live with fire, with purpose, with boldness in your steps, even when the ground feels uncertain. And if the journey gets brutal, and it will, you remind yourself, pressure doesn't break diamonds, it creates them. Think about it. All the pain, all the hate, all the setbacks, they weren't signs that you failed. They were part of your forming, because no strength is ever built in comfort. No clarity ever arrives without confusion. The pain shaped you, the doubt carved out your resilience, the rejection forced you to decide, am I doing this for them? Or because it matters to me? That moment of clarity is everything. It's the line that separates those who quit from those who rise. And when Jimmy reached that point, when he stopped trying to silence the hate and started listening to his heart, he reclaimed his identity. Not the one they wrote about, not the one they attacked, the real one, the one no one could take, and you can do the same. You don't have to be fearless, you just have to keep going even when the fear shows up. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room, you just have to speak the truth when it matters most. The power isn't in being unstoppable, it's in being unwilling to stop. That's where your greatness lies. Because here's the truth, there will always be someone who doubts you, someone who laughs, someone who judges without ever knowing your story, but they don't have your vision, they don't carry your dream. They weren't given your calling, that belongs to you and you alone, and it's not their job to understand, it's your job to protect it. So stop handing your power to people who didn't build you. Stop letting critics write your story. Stop waiting for the world to cheer before you decide to move. This is your time to lead from within, to stop shrinking to make others comfortable, to stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You owe no one your silence, you owe no one your surrender, because one day they'll see what you've built, not because you tried to prove them wrong, but because you were too focused on becoming who you were meant to be. And when that day comes, you won't feel the need to say, I told you so. You'll just smile, not because you won, but because you never gave up on yourself. You chose growth when it was easier to break. You chose peace when chaos was louder. You chose purpose when popularity would have been safer, and most of all you chose you. The world needs more of that, not more perfection, not more performance. More people who are willing to walk through the fire and come out with their integrity intact. More people who stay kind even after they've been torn apart. More people who still believe even when everything in them says not to. Because here's what most people forget. The strongest version of you doesn't show up before the struggle. It shows up because of it. It's born through the pressure. It's revealed in the darkness. That strength, that quiet, steady, unbreakable strength. It was built in the moments you thought you had nothing left. And yet, you kept going. So now the question isn't, what will they say about me? The real question is, what do I choose to say about myself? Do I speak with doubt or with belief? Do I act from fear or from faith? Do I keep living for their approval, or do I finally choose my own peace? You have a voice, you have a gift, you have something this world has never seen before and will never see again. Don't let it go to waste trying to be what they want. Be who you are meant to be, fully, unapologetically, relentlessly. Jimmy didn't find strength in applause. He found it in perseverance, in holding on to his identity when the world tried to take it, in showing up with purpose, not for the stage, but for the soul. And that's what greatness looks like. It's not always loud. It's not always celebrated, but it always leaves a mark. So if you're standing at the edge, if you're wondering whether to keep going, don't you dare give up now. Everything you've been through has brought you here. Every wound taught you something. Every scar tells a story, and every single step has been shaping the warrior in you. You're not done yet, not even close. Your fire is rising. Your strength is growing. Your voice is becoming clearer, and the world hasn't seen the best of you yet. Now breathe, stand tall, and take the next step. Not because they believe in you, but because you finally do. Believing in yourself isn't a moment. It's a decision you make over and over again, especially when it's hardest to do. Especially when the voices of doubt get louder. Especially when the path feels longer than you imagined. And especially when no one else is clapping. That's the point most people quit, not because they're weak, but because they've forgotten who they are. The world wears them down. The weight becomes too familiar. The silence feels endless. And in those moments, you start to wonder if your fight still matters, if your dream still matters, if you still matter, but you do. You matter not because of what you've accomplished, not because of how others see you, but because of who you choose to be when everything feels uncertain. When the applause fades and the lights go out, that's when your character speaks. That's when your soul decides whether to shrink or to rise. You don't need a crowd to know your worth. You don't need permission to stand in your truth, because power isn't about how many people believe in you. It's about how deeply you believe in yourself when no one's watching. Jimmy had to find that truth. He had to let go of the idea that public approval equals personal value. He had to separate the spotlight from his self-worth. And when he did, something unshakable woke up inside him, a clarity that didn't depend on headlines or trends, a calm that came not from having everything, but from needing less, and that's the gift waiting on the other side of your struggle. Not more things, not more validation, but freedom, the freedom to speak with conviction, the freedom to choose your path even if no one else understands it, the freedom to walk away from what's safe and walk toward what's true. Because no amount of likes or praise will ever fill the emptiness of living a life that isn't yours. No amount of applause will quiet the ache of ignoring your own voice. You weren't meant to blend in. You weren't meant to shrink to make others comfortable. You were meant to stand out, to disrupt, to stretch, to lead. That path isn't easy. It's filled with resistance, and that resistance is proof that you're moving in the right direction. Dreams worth having don't come without friction, and the people bold enough to chase them will always face opposition. That's not a sign to stop its confirmation. You're stepping into something greater. So, if you're feeling the weight, good. It means you care. It means you're still in the fight, and that fight means you haven't given up on what matters. Let that be your reminder. Strength isn't the absence of pain. It's the choice to keep walking through it with your head high and your heart open. Don't let the world convince you that silence equals defeat. Sometimes the quietest moments are where the most transformation happens. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs are born in the darkest seasons, and sometimes the person you become in the shadows is far more powerful than the one the world ever sees. So stay in it, keep building, keep believing, not because it's easy, but because you were made for this. There is something in you that is bigger than every challenge, every critic, every fear. You felt it before, in the moments you almost gave up but didn't. In the nights you cried and still woke up ready to try again. In the quiet voice that keeps whispering, "Don't stop now." Listen to that voice. It's not just motivation. It's your truth. It's your calling reminding you that you were built for more. Not just to exist, but to impact. Not just to survive, but to grow. Not just to chase dreams, but to become the person who makes them real. You already have everything it takes. You always did. The fire, the resilience, the vision. You just need to stop waiting for the world to see it and start living like you already do. Your story isn't over, not even close. You're still writing it, choice by choice, day by day. And the most powerful chapters, they come after the struggle. They come when you rise, when you refuse to back down, when you stop asking, "Why me?" and start declaring, "Try me." There is nothing more unstoppable than a soul on fire with purpose. A person who's been knocked down but still gets up. A voice that has been silenced but refuses to stay quiet. So whatever storm you're walking through, whatever doubt you're battling, whatever pain you're carrying, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're being shaped, strengthened, refined, and soon the same struggle that tried to break you will be the reason you shine even brighter, because it's not about how easy the path is. It's about how fiercely you walk it, not for the world, not for applause, but for the quiet, powerful promise you made to yourself. I won't quit. I won't fold. I will rise. And that promise, that's where the real story begins.